Awesome, awesome. Okay, awesome. And I'm going to ask everyone to please mute yourselves, except for David. And that way he and I will show up together. So David, say something so that you like come to the screen.
Hello, how's everyone doing? How are you doing, Anita?
I am doing fine, thank you.
Great.
And I'll find out about you in a second.
Yes.
Okay, so let me get this started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us for our monthly Global Chamber Export Import Forum or Import Export Forum, whichever way you like to say it. I'm the moderator, Anita Rodal, president of SBPI Services. Globally, SBPI Services connects importers and multinational businesses to currency exchange companies that lower their cost of cross-border payments. In the US, we broker business loans, equipment finance, SBA loans, and inventory loans. And we also have a communications division offering pronunciation coaching for accent reduction and webinars for creating stellar 30-second elevator pitches. For anyone who is not already familiar with the Global Chamber, it is a growing collaborative community of CEOs, executives, and business leaders in over 525 metro regions around the world. Its mission is to foster growth in cross-border business, trade, and investment in every region of the world. So let me tell you how today's forum will work. In the first 40 to 45 minutes, I'll be interviewing our guest expert, and after that, we'll open it up to Q&A and conversation. So again, in the meantime, please everyone keep yourselves muted. I invite you to put your contact information and especially your LinkedIn information in the chat. Please include your full name. So in case you don't have a LinkedIn, it's easier to find you. And don't forget to save the chat, very important. So today we are very lucky to have with us David Harlow. And let me tell you a little bit about David. David Harlow is the president of ITC Diligence Incorporated, a second-generation national customs broker and leading international trade consultant. Established in 2002, ITC offers a comprehensive range of international trade services to importers, exporters, manufacturers, distributors, public utilities, and government agencies. As a licensed customs brokerage and international trade consultancy, ITC specializes in forward trade zones, bonded warehouses, and various federal programs. The company facilitates the seamless movement of international cargo through U.S. ports of entry, overcoming trade barriers and educating clients about the benefits and complexities of the U.S. customs processes. David received his U.S. Customs brokerage license in 2004. He has spent the last 25 years specializing in the pharmaceutical, metals, and forward trade zone industries. David serves on the boards of the Los Angeles Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association, as well as the Foreign Trade Association. In addition to that, get ready for this, he participates in committees for the District Export Council of Southern California, DEC Southern California, the National Customs Brokers and Forwarders Association of America, the National Association of Foreign Trade Zones, the International Compliance Professionals Association, and the Global Chamber here in LA with me. David guest lectures at prominent universities such as UNLV, University of Nevada in Las Vegas, Cal Poly, and many others. So welcome, David.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you could make it. All right, and we're in the same time zone. That's always helpful. All right,
Yes.
so what I always do when I start off the Global Chamber Export-Import Forums is I ask 3 ice-breaking questions. They're just real quick, like answer response questions, 30 to 60 seconds, just to find out on the very, very surface a little bit about David. So David, first question is, what got you into this line of work?
So believe it or not, it's somewhat of a family industry in that my father was a licensed customs broker for 40 years. And so me being that young adult, getting married and with a lot of debt and not wanting to be a customs broker, I did get into the industry, working for a company called Fritz Companies to literally pay off the debt so I could have a happy marriage. 6 months into the process, I fell in love with the industry and never looked back and was already taking my broker's license. So it's definitely something I'm passionate about, and it was something I was reluctant to get into, but I thank my dad every day that I did get into this industry because it's one of the most exciting industries.
Who knows best? as they
Yes,
say, right?
exactly.
I found that to always be true. Oh my God, always. Okay, next question, real quick. What do you like the most about what you do?
So I think what has caused me to be so passionate is working in an industry where I can help and affect change with people and companies all over the world. Being able to have that impact that helps to create jobs, help companies to be successful and manage their problems in every corner of the world, which we have experience in, is really what motivates me to continue being successful in this industry.
Okay, perfect. Now, there's always a flip side to the coin. So, what do you like least about what you do? And be honest.
This is a little bit harder to answer, but I'll say probably the wide range of expectations of not having the typical 8 to 5 job. I find myself, working in the evenings, accommodating businesses on the other side of the world that are in different time zones. It creates a lot of complexity to also work on weekends, and so sometimes having to sacrifice that family time to be successful comes with a cost. And so that would probably be the one thing I would change if I could, but I don't think that's in the cards to change either. So
Right, not given the line you're in. And I share your pain
exactly,
on that one because when you work with people in other parts of the world, the time differences come along for the ride.
they
So
do. Yep,
there you
absolutely.
have it. Yeah. Okay. All righty. So we have really interesting topic this month, um, because I don't think a lot of people have know about or familiar with what we're going to talk about unless they are specifically already, in global trade, importing, exporting. But even then, some people not may not be familiar with them. So my first question for you is, what is a foreign trade zone?
So a foreign trade zone is an access restricted facility that allows for a lot of different advantages for importing and exporting. The Foreign Trade Zone program was established in 1934 and it was part of the New Deal. And it's essentially a program that helps companies that manufacture, import, and export receive incentives, financial and logistical incentives, to help grow their business or navigate the obstacles of trade.
Okay, wow. So it's been around that long.
Yeah, it's been around quite a while.
That's
Mm.
crazy. Okay. So we also hear the term free trade zone. So what is a free trade zone and how does it differ from a foreign trade zone?
Yeah, so foreign trade zones is the United States' own version of the program, but it's commonly confused with free trade zones that can be attributed to programs in Asia that allow for employer credits for companies that import raw materials. They're able to manufacture, but they're mandated to export those goods outside of Asia to countries all over the world. So it gives you a lot of employer credit advantages in the free trade zone environment there in Asia for manufacturing. It's also confused with the other term, free trade zones, that is an economic stimulus program that you find common in third world countries that helps allow companies and consumers to buy and sell goods at a discounted rate where there's typically no tariffs or there's reduced costs. And so those are the two programs that people hear about the most. But in the United States, their version is the foreign trade zone that allows you to do all of what you do in those programs, plus much more, that obviously helps companies stimulate importing, exporting, and manufacturing.
Okay. So with regard to what you said about the programs in Asia, that kind of reminds me of the Maquiladora system in Mexico.
Correct.
Is it
Yeah,
similar?
yeah, the free trade zones in Asia are very similar to the Maquiladoras in Mexico and also similar to the bonded warehouse programs in Canada and Europe. And so the United States version of that is the foreign trade zone that does a little bit of what all those other programs do, and then much more here in the United States.
Okay, fantastic. So what are the traditional benefits of the foreign trade zone
Sure.
program?
The foreign trade zone program has four major benefits that drive the program. The first is a cash flow benefit, and this is being able to import raw materials, components, or finished goods into the United States without filing entry, and with bringing those goods into the foreign trade zone and deferring the duties and tariffs and paying those only when you ship into the U.S. commerce. So you're deferring those duties and tariffs while the goods are in your warehouse, where you're doing everything from manufacturing and manipulation. Second would be duty elimination. This is where I do this. I bring my product into my own warehouse, which is my foreign trade zone, but my customer is not in the U.S. My customer is outside the U.S. So I get to eliminate all duties and tariffs. And then third is a manufacturing benefit that allows me to manufacture in my foreign trade zone, where I can reduce my duties by paying the duty rate on the finished good instead of on the raw materials and components. And then lastly is the weekly entry benefit, which allows me to consolidate my entries and file one entry a week. That allows me to reduce merchandise processing fees with customs to create more advantages and streamline the process for distribution in the United States.
So generally speaking, does everyone who takes advantage of the FTZs, do they use all of these, or does it vary? Sometimes you use one or more, sometimes you use, all of them. Like, does everybody use all of them at the same time, or does it just depend on what's going on at any given time?
So the nice thing about the foreign trade zone program, it's not forcing you into a box where you have to do everything the same way. The program is cookie cutter for the business. Based on your business model and your activity, you're going to receive certain advantages to the program. For example, if I'm an importer of finished goods and I distribute goods, the duty deferral benefit and the duty elimination benefit and the weekly entry would be applicable. But the ultimate scenario is when a manufacturer imports raw materials, they defer those duties, they manufacture the duties into a smaller duty rate, and they then export some of that product to eliminate their duties, and then they utilize the weekly entry benefit to minimize fees with customs as well. So the manufacturer has access to all four benefits, or you can be a business that doesn't do one of those things. And so you can pick and choose which benefits you want to use that are applicable to your business model.
You have the freedom to do that, add or not use any given time. Like if you get a new customer and you don't need to do X with it, you just need to do like 1, 2, 3 with it, then that's
Right.
all you're
Yeah.
doing at that.
For
Okay.
example, some companies don't export their goods, and so they'll see the duty deferral benefit, the manufacturing benefit, but not the duty elimination benefit because they don't export. So it's really based on your business model of what benefits would be applicable for your company.
Something comes in, gets worked on, and goes out before the in between the weekly reports. It still gets mentioned on there, but it shows it came in, it went out.
Yeah,
So
and
there was no duty.
that's the beauty when you're exporting, is you are not filing an entry with customs. You're not paying any duties or tariffs or fees to customs. You're eliminating all fees. And then again, the weekly entry where you are bringing goods into the commerce of the U.S., you have the flexibility to ship any volume of goods that you want into the U.S. and only pay duties on those items. So you're not having to worry about your forecast being underreported or overreported. You have a tremendous amount of flexibility to manage that just-in-time concept while seeing significant savings through the program.
Okay, oh, that's amazing. Okay, so I was going to ask you about the history and evolution of the foreign trade zone program. You told us, when it came into being, but has it evolved? Has it changed over the years between 1934 and now? I mean, we're talking 91 years,
Yeah.
89, 91 years. Sorry, bad math.
Yes, and
Bad in math.
the program definitely has evolved. When the program was first established, it was primarily used for manufacturers. You did not see a tremendous amount of distribution out of the foreign trade zone program in the first 50 years. It was in 2000 when distribution benefits were added that allowed companies that distribute to see enormous advantages, such as the weekly entry program that was established in 2000. And then we saw a significant change in 2008, where the program, as it evolved, was creating more and more benefits for large business only and large landowners. And so there was a comprehensive adjustment to the program that ensured that the program was managed by the Foreign Trade Zone Board, and it also accommodated small, medium, and large businesses to be able to see the same benefits and have access to the program in the same timeframes.
Okay, that's excellent. Wait, so you said it was adjusted to accommodate the larger companies in 2008 or the smaller ones? Like where initially,
Yeah,
where
the
was it?
program was growing to only accommodating large businesses. And
Got it,
so
okay.
the 2008 adjustment ensured that small to medium-sized businesses saw the same advantages and had the same access.
Okay, oh, that's fantastic.
That is.
Okay, so what's the difference between a bonded warehouse and a foreign trade zone, and how do they interact?
Sure. So the bonded warehouse program has actually been around since 1803, and it's primarily used to store goods and ship goods. You see companies using bonded warehouses for duty deferral benefits and duty elimination benefits. The program doesn't promote a tremendous amount of manipulation or manufacturing in the bonded warehouse program. It also segregates your cargo from the rest of your operations. And so bonded warehouses have a big value in the industry based on specific business models and specific uses. The difference with the foreign trade zone is nearly everything you do in a bonded warehouse can be done in a foreign trade zone, along with additional benefits such as weekly entry benefits and manufacturing benefits. So again, there's the foreign trade zone, you'd almost say, is a bonded warehouse on steroids, in that you can do so much more in a foreign trade zone along with all of the bonded warehouse benefits. Additionally, a bonded warehouse has 11 different types of bonded warehouses, but there's only 2 types of foreign trade zones. So there's a lot more flexibility in a foreign trade zone versus a bonded warehouse when it comes to operational perspectives.
Okay, so does a foreign trade zone also need to have bonded warehouses? Is that like included, or
So
is it just separate?
the benefits of the bonded warehouse are already included in the foreign trade zone.
Okay.
So you don't need both, although there are certain advantages that each have. And so we're starting to see more and more companies will set up their facilities to provide both the bonded warehouse and the foreign trade zone. So, but again, it comes down to your business model and your activity of what makes the most sense for you.
And would that depend on location? So I'm trying to think, like, if they're close, but you get so much more with the FTZ, do you see a lot of bonded warehouses upgrading, to put it, in those terms, to foreign trade zone?
Absolutely. And we've seen that happen quite a bit. And there's definitely been a surge of foreign trade zones over the past 30 years where we've seen less bonded warehouse activity. But in the recent environment that we have today, the way these executive orders are written, we're seeing more advantages in some cases for bonded warehouses. So they're becoming more popular here recently as well, due to the immediate obstacles that we're tackling with tariffs.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question to you. What are the differences between the bonded warehouses and the foreign trade zones with regard to we'll just say, looming tariffs? They're lurking out
Exactly.
there. We don't know.
And so this is where it's interesting is prior to these tariffs being implemented and these executive orders being issued, there was very little difference between the two, and there was a significant benefit to the foreign trade zone. But with the executive orders that have been issued, there's been restrictions in the language of the executive order that limits some advantages to foreign trade zones and creates additional advantages for bonded warehouses. An example of this in the tariff environment is the executive orders restrict foreign trade zones in that the tariffs and the duties are determined at the time of receipt rather than the time of withdrawal. So I determine what my duty and tariff rate is at the time of receipt, but I'm not paying those fees until I withdraw the goods. Where the bonded warehouse allows for the duty and tariff rates to be determined at the time of withdrawal and have to be paid also at the time of withdrawal. So as an example, if I bring in product that has 150% tariff rate in a foreign trade zone, it's locked in at the time of receipt. So if that tariff goes down, it's a disadvantage. If it goes up, it's an advantage in a foreign trade zone. But in a bonded warehouse, it's the opposite impact. 150% tariff comes in, it doesn't get locked in until I'm ready to withdraw it. So if that tariff rate drops, there's an advantage to a bonded warehouse. But if that tariff rate goes up, then it's a disadvantage for a bonded warehouse. So unfortunately, we're being forced in the trade community to start gambling for the first time that I'm aware of deciding, do I want to position myself as a foreign trade zone or a bonded warehouse?
So can you change that? If you're a foreign trade zone, do you have to like, is it how things are cataloged when they come in or how you're cataloged per your existence?
So the structure of each program mandates how those duties and tariffs are determined. So depending on the program determines, what duties and tariffs you're going to have to pay at the time you withdraw the goods. And unfortunately, you can't pivot from one program to the other based on those advantages. And the process to establish any one of those programs can be significant based on where you're located.
So the difference in what the tariffs would be when something comes in and then something goes out, would that solely be determined by what the tariffs are, or would, for example, the manufacturing that you might do within the foreign trade zone change the status of the tariffs and lower it?
No, so unfortunately, again, the way that the executive orders are written, it doesn't allow for manufacturing benefits with goods that are subject to tariffs. So I don't get the manufacturing benefit in a foreign trade zone because of how these executive orders are written, which is definitely a concerning topic for the foreign trade zone community and for the trade community as a whole.
Is that being challenged? Are any of those executive orders being challenged, or is there ongoing conversation, to your knowledge, you know, to get those changed?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually are involved in a lot of advocacy efforts with the National Association of Foreign Trade Zones to advocate for changing this language to incentivize manufacturing in the FTZ environment, which incentivizes more manufacturing in the United States, which has been one of the narratives from the beginning that these tariffs are there to stimulate more manufacturing. And so it's looking at the nuances of these programs to make sure they're consistent with that narrative that incentivizes more manufacturing in the United States.
So when these executive orders were written, do you think it's just incidental that they happen to affect the foreign trade zones in one way and the bonded warehouses in a different way? Because it was more about the tariffs themselves than what effect it would have on the community that's actually getting stuff out the door.
So the one thing I would say is, when working with bureaucrats, they're usually understanding the 50,000-foot level of any one program. So there could be some lack of information or understanding there. But I've also in recent months have learned to never try to guess what the White House administration or any bureaucrat is thinking or predicting. I would hope that there is good reasons for some of this that's just not visible to us at this time.
Okay. And like, how quickly could that turn around? If somebody manages to convince somebody in the administration that this is having the opposite effect, we're trying to stimulate export, manufacturing and export, in the US, like how quickly, what would the process be for turning around? Would they do a new executive order or would they just like nullify that one? Like, do you have any idea? You may or may not, I don't know.
No, and we've actually already seen instances where the White House administration has amended executive orders, or has created new executive orders and discontinued previous executive orders. So it's just a flick of the pen in an executive order that can change this language to make it more advantageous for manufacturers. Just like anything else. The other option would be legislation from Congress that would also be a way to change the current way these things are being administered.
Okay. All right, interesting. I have more questions on that, but that would be more about legislation, and I'm not an expert. I don't know if you are an expert in that. Okay, so if things weren't so crazy and volatile right now, I wanted to know how companies would determine if a foreign trade zone is a good solution for them. So let's assume that things are normal. How would a company determine, oh yeah, I should be using that as a tool?
So one of the biggest difficulties for businesses in trade is first finding out about foreign trade zones. It's not a program that's widely promoted or advertised by the federal government in any way. And typically, the entities that are promoting foreign trade zones are consultants such as ourselves or economic development corporations or public utilities that are familiar with the program and promoting it regionally. So this is the biggest concern. So that's the first step. The second step is once you're aware of the program, it's understanding this isn't a program that should be taken lightly. It's usually requires significant investment to become a foreign trade zone or a bonded warehouse. And there's long-term impacts that you need to understand. And so one of the ways we help companies understand this and make the best decision for themselves is we provide a cost-benefit analysis at no cost and no commitment to help show how much you can save using the program, as well as how much it costs to set up and manage the program, so that you have a transparent view of whether or not there's a net savings that benefits your company in using the program.
So one of the things I'm thinking, just like using the words to generate the image, when we talk about a zone, is it in any way, shape, or form an actual physical zone, like X miles from the port can be considered the zone? Or if if you own a foreign trade zone and people use your warehouse space and everything else and your services, can that be added on to? Can you expand, therefore expanding the opportunity for a manufacturer to take advantage of your services?
So the answer to that is yes. So there's two different types of foreign trade zones. The first one is a general purpose zone that's primarily for distribution and some manufacturing, and that has a limitation of 60 miles or 90 minutes from the port of entry. The other type of zone is called a subzone, which is primarily for manufacturing, and that has no distance or time requirements. So I can be 500 miles away from the nearest port of entry and become a foreign trade zone as long as I have the support of local customs. So that gives you that flexibility. And then either one of those programs can allow for public warehousing to benefit and to provide access to small to medium-sized business to utilize those public warehouses. And again, if I'm an importer and I decide I now want to manufacture, I can always expand my facility, and I can add additional facilities to support the different business activities that I have as well. So you have a tremendous amount of flexibility in the program to maximize those benefits for your business as you continue to grow.
Okay. And I was laughing because clearly they weren't thinking of Los Angeles. I mean, 60 miles or 90 minutes. It's taken me 90 minutes to go 8 miles. So like,
I agree. I agree. And so that's why you have the time frame as well as the distance. But there's definitely creative ways to manage that distance and to maximize the opportunities the foreign trade zone has to offer.
okay. So it's not whichever comes first.
Correct.
Okay. Thankfully. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, this is all sounding amazing, Why would you say that foreign trade zones are considered the industry's best kept secret?
Simply because you're not seeing public utilities or the federal government promoting it. In fact, if you were to go on to a customs website or the federal government's website, trying to find information about this program is hard to find. It's deep into the website. It is usually difficult to find any information about it at all. Although, search engines like Google or ChatGPT do make it a lot easier now to gain access, but you also need to be aware of it so that you can do your due diligence. And so, like I said before, it's usually service providers that are promoting and marketing the program where you're not seeing it readily available. So again, do your due diligence, reach out to consultants or other service providers to learn more about the program and other programs that can help companies manage those obstacles as well as expand your opportunities.
Okay, awesome. So, what is the one thing that you would change about foreign trade zones to further improve the balance of trade, if you could?
So if I was in the White House administration, probably the biggest difference I would want to make is to incentivize manufacturing. Issuing tariffs on finished goods, I can understand. Issuing tariffs on raw materials and components deters manufacturing. By changing the executive order that allows for manufacturing benefits in FTZ environments to grow and stimulate manufacturing would be a great way to start to see more onshoring in the United States for manufacturing opportunities, which creates significant high-paying jobs for companies. I can't tell you how many companies have left the United States because it's just too difficult to manufacture, or companies that have made the investment to manufacture in the United States and feel they're being penalized now because of some of these restrictions. And so changing the way that a lot of the tariffs have been managed to incentivize more manufacturing would be my wish list of how to see significant improvements in our current environment.
Does your industry have like lobbyists that work on these types of things, and that one in particular?
Absolutely. So again, the National Association of Foreign Trade Zones has their own lobbyists and their own advocacy efforts, which we're one of the leaders with the association on trying to make those changes. We recently attended Capitol Hill and meeting with congressmen to educate them about foreign trade zones and some of the despairing restrictions that we've recently said, what can be done to change this and what those results could look like in incentivizing more manufacturing and trade in the United States. And so we continue to make those efforts. We continue to work with U.S. Customs and other government agencies to build that awareness and education that the Foreign Trade Zone program is there to complement U.S. industry. It's not there as an obstruction to U.S. industry.
So you're lucky to be located where like two of the largest, busiest ports in the United States are the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach. Um, so to what extent does like the county of LA um, and the state of California, as an example, there might be something similar in other states. Like, do they get involved in promoting these services and lobbying Washington so that because anything that benefits you benefits the state, it benefits the county because that's where the ports are. Like, how involved does regional and state government get in these things, to your knowledge?
So there definitely, when you're setting up a foreign trade zone program, it does require state legislation to support the program. And so all states have this legislation in place already, but the promotion of the program sometimes does not always get included when it comes to state or county level. This is where companies like ourselves will collaborate with the state and with the counties and with cities and with EDCs that are out there in the trenches with the businesses educating them about the foreign trade zone program and understanding its advantages. Attending, conferences like Select USA that we do is to help build that education and awareness. So again, it's getting involved with those trade associations as well. So we do quite a bit of that, as you can see, and we love to be involved. We love to talk about foreign trade zones and be passionate about it, as you can probably tell.
And that's how you get the word out there. And you spend a
Absolutely.
lot of your time, obviously, with organizations that are working toward that goal. So it's funny you said in your spare time, like, well, I don't think you have spare time. Doesn't seem to me. Um, okay, then let's see, I had another question here. You already covered it, how the tariff situation. Well, okay, is the tariff situation, is there any positive aspect to it? Maybe for the bonded warehouses there are, but generally speaking, the current tariff situation, is there anything positive about it from your perspective?
I think the silver lining that you could pull from the tariff situation is it's caused the rest of the country to talk more about trade, more about supply chains, learn more about bonded warehouses and foreign trade zones. We're seeing an enormous spike in interest in foreign trade zones and bonded warehouses across the country. And so just that awareness and that education will have profound effects long term for the program and to continue building that momentum that we've seen for the past 30 years.
Okay, okay, awesome. So what would you say are the best ways to navigate obstacles, trade obstacles under the current environment?
And again, I don't think there's any one perfect solution that absolves any one of these tariff issues, but utilizing the foreign trade zone program for the benefits that it represents is going to help make those tariffs a little bit more palatable and allow you to better manage your cash flow. And when you have to pay those tariffs, avoid having to pay unnecessary tariffs and duties for goods that you export is a great example of this. Some of the tariffs that exist today, such as the IEEPA tariff and the steel and aluminum tariff, don't allow for refunds by customs for programs like drawback, where foreign trade zones allow you to not pay those duties and tariffs up front and only pay on goods that are entering the commerce. So it allows you to avoid paying duties and tariffs on goods that you're exporting. And so there's definitely an incentive to export more product using a foreign trade zone to avoid those tariffs and duties that can sometimes be cost prohibitive for companies.
Okay, interesting. So you are also, ITC is also a licensed customs broker, right?
Yes.
So why were you FTZ first and then became a license, a licensed customs broker? Like what was the sequence of events?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question. When we started our business in 2002, we struggled to identify companies that wanted to utilize the foreign trade zone. And then when we did identify companies that could save a tremendous amount of money, we found them not choosing the foreign trade zone because their customs brokers did not believe the program was viable or was concerned that it was legitimate. Number of companies, their tax attorneys or customs brokers that weren't educated in the program, deterred their clients from using it. This is why we decided to establish our company as a customs broker as well, so that we could then educate companies, show them that we're a customs broker, and this is why you should be a foreign trade zone, and that it is 100% legitimate, and that it is a program that's been around for a long time to help companies. So that was one of those things I think inherent in the industry is the term is used that people date their freight forwarder and they marry their customs broker. And so what that means is customs brokers are held with high regard. People emphatically trust their customs broker. So as a customs broker, we were able to provide advice that people trusted that the foreign trade zone program was a good thing and was a great reason to invest in the foreign trade zone program.
Okay, awesome. That's I like the way that you put that. That's hilarious, but it paints the picture.
It
So
does.
that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I got through all of my questions amazingly. I want to open it up now for discussion and questions. Francis, your hand went up. So everybody's free to unmute themselves and then raise your hand. And you Alt Y will raise your virtual hand, or because I'm not, I guess I can put it in gallery view so I can see more people. But if your camera's not on, I will not see that you're raising your hand. So if you want to ask a question or mention something, then please put your camera on so I can see you. So Francis, ask away.
Thank you, Anita. And David, great information. Really appreciate the information you sharing with us. I have a question with regards to the USMCA and Maquiladoras, and the free trade zones in Mexico. And how would you suggest an importer into the United States utilize Maquiladoras or the USMCA?
So I actually have a great story of a company that was very forward thinking and looking on how they can utilize free trade zones in Asia, maquiladoras in Mexico, and foreign trade zones in the United States as a binational supply chain manufacturing process. They would import material from China. They would use their patented spring that's made in the United States, and they'd bring all of this into a foreign trade zone, and then they would ship it to the maquiladora where the legs to the furniture were made in Mexico. They manufactured it into a finished product, and then they were able to bring it back into the United States where it qualified for USMCA. And in that environment, they received incentives from the free trade zones in Asia. They eliminated all duties and fees in the United States, and they eliminated any VAT or duties and taxes in Mexico, and then bring it all back into the United States. It was a duty-free environment on how they manage their manufacturing process. So that's a great example of how you can use programs from different countries to maximize your benefits in your supply chain. So that's just one example. We also see quite a bit where companies will bring goods into Mexico, and they may not always meet that USMCA requirement. And so foreign trade zones can offer additional advantages. But again, working with both programs and the free trader program is ideal if you're looking for creative ways to benefit from the different programs in manufacturing.
David, one follow-up question I have, in the calculation of the net tariff value, the NTF, how much expertise, should companies have to, try to engineer their tariffs? That's my last question.
Yes. And so as a licensed customs broker, I'm not a big fan of engineering tariffs. A lot of times companies will take shortcuts and they'll look for the favorable answer when they do that. So again, ultimately, we want to be in full compliance with U.S. Customs. And so it's making sure that that classification and that tariff or duty is accurate more than advantageous, because we want to be compliant first and foremost. It's using different programs like the Foreign Trade Zone, like Maquiladoras, like free trade zones to help maximize those benefits and put you in the best position to be compliant and also create duty advantages. So it's definitely something to explore, but to be very mindful and cautious that you're in compliance first.
Thanks, Francis. Thank you, David. Eduardo, nice to see you. Ask away.
Hey, Anita. No, I just wanted to mention that for all effects and practices, a maquiladora is a free trade zone. It behaves like one where you're able to bring in raw material without any duties and transform it, change it into a product, and ship it into the US. So if anyone needs help with that, I'm just wanted to make myself available.
Right. I'm a big
Awesome.
fan of maquiladoras as well. So we try to promote those, especially when you're doing business in Mexico.
Eduardo was my interviewee in February, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
So all of these export-import forums are recorded on the Global Chamber's YouTube channel. So you can go back and listen to the interview with Eduardo if anybody's interested. So there we go.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from anybody? David, is there anything else that I could have asked you that I didn't, that I should have?
I guess the one thing I would say is when you look back at the Foreign Trade Zone program, there's been a tremendous amount of growth with the program, going back where we see in 2023 over $1 trillion of goods were imported into the United States. Over 5% of all exports that happen in the United States come from foreign trade zones. The Foreign Trade Zone program complements the domestic industry as well as the international trade industry. Over 500,000 jobs are created in the FTZ program. It's definitely something to look into, and probably the biggest detractor for foreign trade zones is the lack of understanding or awareness that companies have. More often than not, when companies do their due diligence and learn about the program, it usually becomes a no-brainer to participate in the program, either by establishing your own company or working with a 3PL FTZ that's scattered throughout the United States. As national consultants, we work with companies and regions all over the United States, from as far east as southern Florida and Jacksonville and Miami to New York, Chicago, New Orleans, Texas, and especially California, and even the Northwest. So, and everywhere in between. We have clients in about 30 different states, and we're currently processing quite a bit of applications because of the significant interest of the program. But we look forward to talking to more people about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Doug, nice to see you. Your hand is raised.
You too, really, Anita. Thank you so much. This has been really helpful. David, I'm sorry if you covered this, but could you talk a little bit about free trade zones outside the U.S. and what systems are in place? One of our members is the Incheon Free Trade Zone with Dr. Yun, who's our person and our leader in South Korea. And I presume those are related in some way, or is there some sort of an organization where you guys all talk to each other? How does that work on a global scale?
Sure. So the Free Trade Zone program in Asia is primarily to stimulate manufacturing in those countries for export out of those countries. So typically a company in China or South Korea that's established as a foreign trade zone is going to receive advantages for bringing in those raw materials, manufacturing them, and then the stipulation is you have to export them out of those countries, which is what most of what's happening in those countries anyways. There's also additional employer credits that are also afforded to those companies that are set up as a free trade zone. And this couples really well with other programs, whether it's working with the Maquiladora program or the Foreign Trade Zone program. If my manufacturer in China is a free trade zone and they're able to reduce their cost of doing business, and then that creates a more favorable price point for the importer, who then does further manufacturing in the United States and is able to see other financial advantages. Coupling these programs together create a significant opportunity for that supply chain to be successful across the world. So yeah, that's what we see quite a bit in Asia. The other unique thing is in Asia, it's usually industrial parks that are set up as free trade zones that have a significant amount of security and requirements. And then there's a number of companies inside those environments that see all of those advantages. The difference in the United States is a foreign trade zone is not necessarily part of an industrial park, and it doesn't require significant security, but it does require businesses being compliant, being proactive, and being good actors of the international trade industry.
Amazing. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, we have like 2 minutes. So Francis, if you have a quick question with a quick answer, ask away.
Hopefully it is a quick. So David, you were talking about significant investments to actually, partake in establish an FTZ. And I know there's some in, different parts of the country. Can you give us a sense of what, it's a big, broad question, so maybe you won't be able to have it, but what amount of investment is necessary to establish be in an FTZ? And I know that like in Texas, it's probably cheaper than doing it in California just because of land costs, labor costs, et cetera. So can you briefly speak to that?
Sure, absolutely. So on average to set up a foreign trade zone can cost a company anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 or more, depending on the complexities of their business, the software that they may or may not need, and the consultant that they work with. Then for operating a foreign trade zone can cost anywhere from $40,000 to $75,000 a year for operating costs. So typically a company that becomes a foreign trade zone is seeing at least $100,000 savings or more. If they don't, then utilizing third-party FTZs become ideal. And believe it or not, those costs fluctuate based on the complexity of the business, not the location that they're in. The regional costs are not significantly different from one region to another. So again, it's really more focused on the complexity of your business and the benefits you need and what mechanisms are required to be successful.
That was a great question. Thanks, Francis. All the questions have been great. All the answers have been great. This has been an incredibly informative interview. They all are, but the one we're working with is the one that's most interesting at the moment. So thank you so much for all that information, David, and thank you to everybody for joining us today for the Global Chambers Export-Import Forum. If you enjoyed today's discussion, I hope you'll join us next month. We are on the 4th Thursday of the month at noon Pacific time. So next month would be on May 22nd. In the meantime, make sure that you check out the calendar for the Global Chamber. There are events going on all over the world. If you can't sleep, look at the calendar. Somebody's talking to somebody else in another part of the world. You never have to worry about not being able to sleep. So hope to see y'all next month. Have a great month. Have a successful month. And we will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
David.
David. Thank you, Anita.
This was
Thank
amazing.
you. My pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks.